As a prefix, the word ortho implies something that is straight, something that is upright, as in an orthodontist who straightens teeth, orthopedics, the straightening out of bones, and an orthotist who focuses upon posture and the straightening out of the ankle area of the individual. In the Jewish world, we have the individual who is described as an Orthodox Jew, a term that is broadly bandied around and refers to an individual who is committed to halachic Judaism. Taking a look at this descriptive, however, the word orthodox has a twin, orthoprax, and strictly speaking, the term orthodox is more concerned with one's belief structure, and hence the term describes the acceptance of Orthodox Jewish beliefs. In other words, belief in God to the exclusion of all other forces, the concept of Hashem Echad, of the Shema, and a commitment to observe mitzvot as defined by the halachic system. Orthoprax, on the other hand, relates to the actual doing things that are aligned to one's subgroup. And technically speaking, an orthoprax Jew would describe the Jew who actually observes the mitzvot. And in this modern day and age, there is a broad spectrum of commitment with respect to the observance of mitzvot that may or may not involve an acceptance of or a belief in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Technically, orthoprax people have their own reasons for keeping mitzvot, ranging from social identity, in other words belonging to a Bet Knesset that is nominally committed to Orthodox Judaism, and for which membership in these institutions involve not crossing certain red lines established by the group. In the previous generation, and particularly in British Commonwealth countries, many Jews defined themselves as traditional. In America, the traditional Jew broke from the Orthodox and formed a separate group identified as conservative Judaism. Others, who are not necessarily observant of all the mitzvot, nevertheless retain certain mitzvot on account of family ties. Kashrut in the home, from many, is one example. And others redefine mitzvot in an image in which they feel more comfortable, which takes the form of tikkun olam, which very often is conflated with statements in the Torah regarding human dignity. Insofar as Orthodox Judaism is concerned, the ideal is a combination of orthodox, the belief component, coupled with orthoprax, the observance of the mitzvot. Whereas to the orthoprax Jew, one is comfortable in cherry-picking the Taryag mitzvot that meet their need, but in general, there may or may not be the belief component in their actions, which raises a rather interesting question from the standpoint of halacha. Is it possible to keep mitzvot without emunah, or rephrased differently, mitzvot, observance done for the purpose of social identity, family ties, moral and ethical issues, are they valid mitzvot within the framework of halachic Judaism? Based upon a statement in the Gemara Masechet Pesachim, Daf Kuf Yud Dalet, that mitzvot Ein tzrichot kavana, the Rebbe's answer to this question was yes, that even if the individual at the time has no appreciation that he or she is performing a mitzvah at the behest of HaKadosh Baruch, nevertheless the act is deemed a mitzvah, irrespective of the intent. Of course, as with any new innovation, there's bound to be criticism, and whether on the basis of halacha or political maneuvering, there were many individuals who came out against the Tefillin campaign initiated by the Rebbe on the eve of the Six-Day War, maintaining that the brachot recited attracts the situation of a bracha levatala. Clearly the ideal is the performance of mitzvot with a belief factor, and this is reflected in the requirement that prior to doing a mitzvah, one recites a bracha that links the observance into a belief structure, in which the wording emphasizes Asher Kedishano b'mitzvotav, that I'm doing this because God has sanctified me with the requirement to observe this or that particular mitzvah. This link between observance and belief is reflected in the opening introduction to the Aseret HaDibrot, Vayidaber Elokim et kol hadavarim ha'ele lemor, that the entire set of 10 Dibrot were uttered by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and for which, as noted by the Ramban, while they heard and understood the first 2 of the Dibrot relating to Emunah, for the remaining 8, they merely heard the sounds of the Dibrot emanating from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but did not understand what they heard, for which the question was asked, what was the point of hearing the sound without understanding? In response, the Rebbe suggests that through the first 2 of the Aseret HaDibrot, the Jews received, by way of matana, a belief in HaKadosh Baruch Hu to the exclusion of all other forces. From this point in time, they, as a nation, were given the power of emunah. But as noted, Judaism is not a religion based upon belief, but rather on action, on mitzvot. And therefore, there was a need for this emunah to be reflected in the actual observance of mitzvot. And the 8 mitzvot of the Aseret HaDibrot, which according to Rashi, based upon Rav Sadia Gaon, is a prototype that reflects all of the 611 mitzvot that they ultimately received through Moshe Rabbeinu, a point that we shall explore in the next panel, footnote number 66. And therefore, while the actual specifics of the 8 Dibrot went from HaKadosh Baruch Hu to Moshe Rabbeinu, and from Moshe Rabbeinu to the nation, there was a component in which the nation heard, or in other words, received the ability to bring that emunah out of the realm of pure faith into the world of action. And for this, while not understanding the words emanating from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, nevertheless, they heard the call of God uttering these mitzvot. And in this way, we can also respond to question number 2, the difference between the 2 categories of mitzvot. The first 2 in which they heard and understood, whereas in the remaining 8, they merely heard the call. The actual specifics of the mitzvot were channeled through Moshe Rabbeinu.